episode of Beating Alpha. This is episode 161, and we have a very special guest on. His name is Yoder. So Lee was participating as a physical therapist when he realized his true passion was building his own business and investing in real estate. He has taken his passion and considerable action to quickly build a portfolio with several small apartment buildings. So Lee now is the founder and visionary behind the Threefold Real Estate Investing, which of course you can find on threefoldrei.com. And he's committed to forging a path that will generate incredible wealth and opportunity for all involved. So his focus is driving the business forward by forging new relationships with top-notch professionals in the real estate world and bringing on more partners to invest alongside Threefold. So Lee also hosts an exciting new podcast. It's called Threefold Real Estate Investing that, of course, you can find on iTunes probably, right? Which focuses on multifamily real estate investing while also focusing on pursuing better relationships with family and a better walk with Christ. So, and I said, threefoldrei.com, that's the website. You should get in contact with Lee himself personally on LinkedIn and Facebook, and those are going to be in show notes down below. So Lee, again, big thank you for coming over today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Martinos, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So look, multifamily, I mean, a lot of people talking about it, and it's kind of, for me now, it's clear reasons why people are investing in it, but again, for the people who are watching, that's what I wanted to say thank you for coming over, because giving some clarity for the people of what multifamily investing is, and maybe you can tell, first of all, your personal story and how did you get involved with this business?
Yeah, sure. So like you mentioned there in my bio, I'm a physical therapist by trade. So I'm actually still doing some physical therapy, looking to move full-time into real estate. But when I was doing physical therapy, I was actually doing what we call home health physical therapy. So I was going to people's houses. I still am. So I would go to people's houses. I was doing that full-time, and it was a great job. I had great flexibility, paid well, but I just wasn't challenged or fulfilled at all in that job. So my wife loved it because I was home a lot. We were raising, young kids and stuff like that, but it was really boring. So with this company I was with, I actually moved into the office and became a clinical director, started kind of working up the corporate ladder, kind of doing more like a director of operations type role. And so I have that experience of being on the corporate side and climbing the corporate ladder and being fulfilled with my job and it being very exciting and challenging. So I was enjoying that, but then like losing, time with my family. And even when I am home, kind of like thinking about work and being just kind of consumed by my work. So I feel like that's a common story of people. I feel like maybe even more men that are, ambitious in that way and kind of like fall into that of really striving to have a good career and doing well on the corporate side, but then kind of losing those relationships that mean the most to us. So I had that. So after doing that for a couple of years, in kind of a grueling position like that, I started to think about other options that where I could have both, where I could be challenged, do something exciting, something that I'm really passionate about, which wasn't physical therapy. It's not home health physical therapy. I'm just not passionate about it. It's not challenging for me. It's not exciting. So I'm like, what could I do? Like, how can I find this in between? And that's when I got turned on to real estate. A friend of mine gave me a real estate book. It wasn't a great one, but it kind of started me down that rabbit hole. I ended up reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki that a lot of people talk about. Just through reading some of these books, the light kind of popped on. And for me, it was like, I think this is what I'm looking for, where I can have both. So what I ended up deciding to do, Marthanos, was I left this busy corporate job, took a very big pay cut, went back to doing home health physical therapy, but on the side now I'm doing real estate. So it's been very challenging. So I've been doing that now for I left 4 years ago, and it really took me about a year to really jump into real estate. So for the past 3 years, I've been investing in real estate, all while having the full-time job in physical therapy. But my full-time job is very flexible. I honestly don't even work 40 hours a week in my job. So it's been relatively easy compared to a lot of people that have a very busy job to have this side hustle of real estate. But that's one of the many things that I love about real estate. If you want to get into investing in real estate, you can do it whatever capacity you want. You can buy a turnkey rental. and do nothing, just invest money. You can invest in an apartment syndication, like what I'm, trying to do it with my investors, and many others do here and in other countries in the world. So you could just, if you have a very busy job and you say, well, I want to get into real estate, but I don't have any time, you can just invest some money, be disciplined, save some money, invest some money in some deals. And now you're into real estate, and now your money is working for you, and you're developing now have some passive income that maybe, takes you toward a place where you don't have to work so much or at all, or retire a little early. So that's what I started doing. I started by flipping a house, again, kind of on the side while I'm working full time. We did well financially on that deal, but realize, like many, that flipping is just like another job. I mean, you have to put in a bunch of time, you invest some money, and then if you work really hard at it and you do well, then you'll make some money. And we did. We made more money than we expected to, which we had very low expectations because it was our first one. So, but it just took a ton of time. So my wife, was like, hey, it's like you're back at your corporate job. We've made no progress here. Like, so this isn't for us. So that's where, Martinez, we started looking, okay, well, what about multifamily? What if we're not flipping? What if we're buying rentals and we're looking for passive income? And it's not completely passive income, but when you get rentals, we always knew we wanted to have our stuff managed. So we got a duplex. We managed that ourselves for a little bit, actually sold that. That was more like a flip as well, but it went much better than the first one. And then after that, we got a 16-unit apartment, and I did work on that, but I had a property management company managing everything for me. And that was a game changer. That was a very different experience where I'm not really the one, I'm not the one managing this property. I'm the one kind of managing the asset and managing the manager, but they've got it. They're taking care of everything. And so for my wife and I, that was a good experience. We're like, okay, this is where we want to be. And it's cool. I mean, now like we own 16 units instead of 1 or 2, as we had before. So it was actually just actually my wife's parents that invested in that deal with us. And then I had a mentor, but that's how we kind of got into multifamily. And that's where our focus has been ever since. And that's where we're going to continue to focus.
Got it. Okay. So, and kind of before we start talking, before I started recording, you mentioned that you have the 16, 8 units and 10 units deal, multifamily deal. And again,
Yes.
part of that, so the 16 unit, have you acquired yourself? I mean, was it with your own personal money? It's JV or syndication? Which have you done?
We've done JVs on all of those, and it's been all my wife's parents, my parents, and a close friend of mine. That's it. So yeah, just some family and friends money. We've put our money into at least a little bit in each money, but very little. One deal we put a little bit more into. So we've done some of our own money, but mostly close family and friends have put in the money. And then we are the ones really managing the deal, but it's a JV, just a simple JV partnership on that.
So when you're talking about a friend, you mean Kevin? Is he a friend of
yours?
No.
Actually, Kevin came later. So okay. No, Kevin is now my business partner. So he's, we're general partners together, and we're going after bigger deals. But Kevin was actually, what's interesting is Kevin and I worked on the corporate side together, and he's the one that introduced me to real estate. He's the one that handed me the first book and said, hey man, I'm kind of unhappy with this too. I've been kind of looking into some other stuff. So we both started looking into real estate. The funny thing is that was, like I said, that was 4 years ago that I left. He left almost a year later. He stayed there a year longer than I did. He got into land, buying and selling land is what he got into. So, and his wife's a doctor, and she went and did a residency up in Canada. So for 3 years, well, really 3 years, he and I were completely separate, but both into real estate, him doing land, me doing, starting flips and then doing multifamily. So now we're working together to do apartment syndication. So yeah, it actually wasn't Kevin. It was a friend of mine from church that has a great investor because he has a very busy job. He makes good money. But like I was talking about before, Martin, it's like he wants to get in real estate, but he doesn't have the time. I have the time. So we partnered his money with my time.
Okay. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So any advice for people who are watching, and again, maybe they want to start their own personal multifamily business, and any tips for those people on vetting potential partner?
Oh, I'm vetting a partner. Yeah. Everybody says about like, you've just really got to be aligned on what your goals are. I think that's the main thing. I mean, you certainly want to get a person that's honest and hardworking. I mean, I would hate to obviously work with someone that's not honest. And then I couldn't work with someone that's not going to work as hard as I do. Cause then you're going to feel like, why are we splitting this when I'm doing more work? So, somebody that's honest, hardworking, somebody you like. I mean, if it's somebody you're going to do a lot of work with, Kevin and I got along really well when we were on the corporate side. So, so they always say like date first, right? So Kevin and I feel like we dated because he and I built a division for that company together. So he and I were basically like, building a division, kind of like building our own little business within this business. So we had a lot of experience of working together and building something together. We knew we really liked each other. We knew our work ethic. We have the same goals. I mean, and you don't have to be relying like religiously and everything, but Kevin and I are. We're both Christ followers, and we both have young kids. So we're just aligned on so many ways. But, I think almost as important as all that, Martin, it's like you have to have the same goals and same ideas about how you're going to achieve that. So if you find somebody, hey, I want to be into real estate too. Okay, let's partner up. What if one of you is thinking that means flipping houses and one of you is thinking, buying apartments? Or even if you, getting even more detailed, if you both know you want to get into apartments, but one of you is thinking, hey, let's get these apartments, let's reposition them and let's sell them. And the other one's thinking, let's get these apartments and hold them forever and pass them on to our kids. I mean, you've really got to make sure up front that you're really aligned with that person. So I think, it's got to be a person you trust, I would say that you've dated for a while, like you've worked with before, or been meeting with and doing that, for a long time. And then it's got to be a person that's really aligned as far as your specific goals in the real estate space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And that's a very great advice. So thank you for sharing that. So part of your personal process with the threefold is buying right, and the current JV deals that you have, are those all in Ohio State or somewhere else also?
Yes. Yeah, those are all within, those are all within like 25 minutes of where I live. So all pretty local to me.
Got it. So when it comes to the syndication model, is that where you're going to continue to look at in the state of Ohio as well?
Yeah, that's been our main focus. I've really been trying to expand my network. I joined a pretty high level mastermind, and it's nationwide. So we have people. We actually have a guy in Canada. But so now that I have more connections, I would feel comfortable buying in a market and partnering with one of the guys in my mastermind. Mm-hmm. I've gotten to know those guys and getting to know them more and more and more. So the more I get to know those guys, the more I would feel comfortable. Like, we've got some guys down in North Carolina. That's a great market here in the States. They've got some cities that are really, their population's really expanding. The main guy, that leads our mastermind, he's down in Atlanta. That's a really hot market. I mean, if I ever found a deal down there, I would definitely take it down because it's a great market. I feel like there's no chance I'm going to find a deal. But if I did, I'd partner with those guys. Right. So, for me and Kevin, we're definitely focusing here locally. That's where all our connections are. That's where we know we have good, solid property management to work with. And to me, that's like the key. I mean, for sure, one of the keys to doing well in this business. So our main focus is here, but we would expand if we had partners that we could, just be GPs with on a deal in a different market.
Got it. Yeah. Again, so what you're talking about, again, there are great deals in all the markets, probably not all, but maybe the most, excluding maybe,
for sure,
New York, California type of areas,
Yeah.
But again, looking at these markets, like how does the Ohio compares, with the surrounding markets around you, and what will be kind of the main drivers for the economy, when it comes to Ohio itself?
Yeah, sure. So, I would say not even just looking at Ohio, but what we call the Midwest, which is Ohio is a part of, kind of or some people call it the Great Lakes region, but, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Illinois, kind of this area in here, where we're located. A lot of people are interested in this area because the affordability of the area, and it's just a solid area. So, compared, you mentioned, Martin, it's like our coasts. So the East Coast and the West Coast, what you're going to see in those markets is in good times, they take off. Like rent skyrockets, property values skyrocket. I mean, it goes nuts. Okay. Like tons of people with money want to move to those areas. There's tons of jobs, like everything's going on there. But when there's a downturn, they crash first and they crash the hardest because they've gone up so high. So you see these big swings. In the Midwest, we don't see a bunch of appreciation. We have here recently, I mean, the housing market is stupid. I mean, it's just crazy. all over the country. So we've seen a ton of growth, but I mean, we'll see a pullback just like everybody else if we have a big downturn, but we won't see it like you'll see it on the coast. So that's one reason a lot of people like to, or people on the coast are looking to the Midwest, is because, it's still somewhat affordable to buy multifamily properties here. I mean, it's still really hard to find a deal that makes sense to me, but it's definitely more affordable than on the coast. And if we have a downturn, you won't see the big drop here because we didn't have a huge run up. So I don't know, if you guys kind of price things the same, Martinez, but just to give you an idea, like here in Ohio in the Midwest, we can buy a nice property for like $50,000 per unit, but the rent might be something like $700, right, for that unit per unit. Okay. On the coast and in some of the booming markets in the United States, you might pay $100,000 per unit. So you're literally paying double, but the rent might be double, might be, $1,300, $1,400 per unit. And what you worry about is in a downturn, people look to move to more affordable areas or more affordable apartments. So yes, you can say, hey, I'll pay $100,000 a unit because I'm getting $1,400. It's the same thing as paying $50,000 a unit, $50,000 a unit, but getting $700. Yes, it is. But during a downturn, I would bet that $100,000 per unit and $1,400 per rent, that's going to come down a lot farther than what we have here in the Midwest. So that's what we've got going for us in the Midwest. There's jobs here, but it's just not a growing population. It's just very stable on the coast. And then what we're seeing here in America a lot, Martinez, is people moving toward warmer weather. So the Southeast, like I already mentioned, the Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Texas. We're seeing a lot of growth in those areas, people moving to the South. And what's interesting, I'm sure you guys have seen it too. I mean, all over the world, COVID has really made it so that more and more people can move wherever they want because more and more people are working remotely. So, hey, I've always worked here. I've always lived here in Ohio because this is where my job is. But now my employer says I don't have to come into work. So I'm moving to where it's warmer and I don't have to put up with the snow. So we are seeing some population growth, but we're not seeing like an exodus from Ohio by any means. You are seeing that from some of the states like New York and California right now because taxes just keep going up in those states. So that's where you see really there is an exodus from some of those expensive states to some of the southern states that are, just lower taxes.
Exactly. So talking about that affordability and taxes, that's part of, a couple of reasons for people to move in a state just like Ohio. So, but talking about that remote type of work that's happening, a lot of it, most of the times right now, like what will be kind of, the main employers, so maybe top three, like the biggest employers in the state of Ohio?
Well, let me so in Cincinnati, GE has their an aviation base in Cincinnati, Ohio. So GE is a huge employer, and then P&G, Procter and Gamble, is big here in Cincinnati. Another one would be Johnson and Johnson. That's what we have here in Ohio. We do have some automakers. So we've got a big Honda plant, actually kind of closer to Columbus. Other big employers. I mean, this business is obviously on the rocks, but colleges. I mean, Columbus is the best market in Ohio, which is our capital, and that's where we have the Ohio State University. And I mean, I think there's like 50,000 students at Ohio State. So I mean, it's just a monster university. And then with universities come the university hospital. Hospitals are big employers here. I mean, healthcare is a huge industry all over the world, but here in the United States, we are growing older, what we call our baby boom generation. We say, I think they said in the United States, we have 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day. Every day. So, hospitals and healthcare is big. So a lot of places like in Cleveland is up in the northeast part of Ohio. They've got the Cleveland Clinic is one of the more well-known hospitals in the country. So that's a big employment driver. We do have some steel industry here. We have some manufacturing, so auto manufacturing, but I would say those are the biggest ones.
Got it. Okay. So coming back to your buying right, can you talk about your specific deal criteria and what type of deals are you going to be looking for? Because it probably is going to be bigger than the 16, 8, and 10 unit deal that you have. So can you talk about like unit counts, the deal criteria, like per unit price? What are your kind of metrics that you're going to be, looking for deals?
Sure. So yeah, we're definitely trying to go bigger. We would love to, the end goal would be to own 100 unit plus apartment buildings. So the big ones. But right now, Martin, I said, is just, I mean, it's so competitive. So we are looking to stay a little bit lower to not compete with the really big money that are going after these big deals. So we're looking like 30 to 80 units is kind of what we're focusing on right now. And when I look at them, there's a couple different ways to do it. I mean, we use the cap rate. What is your net operating income divided by your purchase price? We would love to buy it at between an 8 and a 9 cap. So an 8 or 9% return on your money. If you were to buy all cash, we're not going to buy all cash. So we're going to have an even better return. But a lot of times, when I'm underwriting a deal, Martinez, we're looking at what return can we get our investors, and then what return are Kevin and I going to get? The investors, that comes first. If we can't get them a good return, then there's no use looking at the deal. We need investor money to buy these bigger deals, and we need our investors to be happy in order, to take their money and feel good about it. If we can make them money, I mean, Kevin and I need to make money too, or else why are we doing this, right? It's not just a charity to make other people money. We want to make it worth our time and make it something that, just aligned interests where we're excited, we're working really hard, and our investors excited because they're making money. So we want our investors, to make at least a 10% return. So we usually would set it up where they get an 8% preferred return. So of all the profits that come in, they've got to make their 8% return first, and then we're going to split the rest of the profit with them. So us on the GPs get some of that. So that when we're underwriting, we're looking at, okay, with the amount of money we're going to profit after all the expenses, after the mortgage, after taxes, after insurance, what kind of return can we get our investors? And then what kind of return can we get us? We're not really, again, because we're investing here in the Midwest, but because we want to be conservative as well, we're not looking at appreciation. We're not looking at, our rents are going to just keep growing and property values are going to keep going up. We're not looking at that at all. We're looking at cash flow and how can we are looking at improving the income, but only through what we call forced appreciation, where we are improving the property. We are increasing occupancy. We are increasing rent because we're making a nicer place to live, adding amenities, adding maybe washer, dryer, stuff like that. Maybe upgrading the units. So, we put $5,000-$10,000 into the unit to make it a lot nicer, and now we can charge higher rent. So we're looking at properties where we can add value, force the appreciation instead of just relying on the market to appreciate on its own. And getting that passive appreciation. So we really like to look at properties where we can maybe get in to the unit, for 35 to 45,000 per unit, but then put 5 to 10,000 per unit into the property. So now we're into it from closer to 50,000, maybe 55, but we've got some really nice units and a really nice property overall, and now we're raising rent, so we're able to raise the property value significantly. I mean, you know how that works, and on an 8 cap or whatever, like every, $10,000, let's say even if it was a 10 cap, which is a really low value for a property, for every, $10,000 you increase the NOI, you just increase the value by $100,000. So, you can really see where you can really add value and increase you and your investors' equity in the property. So we're looking for those properties where we can do some work, bring some capital, put some money into the property. A lot of times we're buying properties. The 3 that I bought so far, really all 3 of them were owned by, guys that had owned it for a long time, and they kind of were just cash flowing a little bit, probably had the property paid off, and they were just not really making more improvements. They were kind of done, just ready to be done. And we came in and we brought money, and we've really brought the property back to life and kind of brought it to the next level. So that's what we're looking to do when we buy.
Mm-hmm. And what is going to be your expecting holding period for these deals?
We would always say at least 5. I mean, to be honest with you, the 16 unit that I bought a little over a year ago, we are under contract to sell. So we're going to be just over a year on that one. That was not the plan, but it's a seller's market. It's a good time to sell, and we've added a ton of equity. So we've just decided it makes the most sense for us and our investors to take advantage of the market and sell. And we're actually selling the 8 unit too for the same reason. I mean, that 8 unit is a perfect example, Martinos, of what the market has done. Now, we bought it again from a guy that just he owned his own business. So this for him was more, I mean, you know, the tax advantages. It was really more of just a write-off for him, just a place to park money, kind of write off taxes. So he was not really concerned about making a bunch of money off this property. So his rents were about $150 under market rent. So we came in and he already had a couple of vacancies, a couple of people moved out right away. And then over time, a couple more people moved out. So we have replaced 6 of the 8 residents at $150 higher. And he didn't really know what he had. So we bought that property, just as an example, we bought that property for $300,000. We've probably put in 10 to 15, and you know, we're under contract to sell for over $500,000. So, and we've not had to do that much with that property. We have property management. You know, we've just turned the residents over as they've left and just moved the rent up to market rent. So we've done those nice things, but along with that, over the past year, our resident, you know, the real estate market has gone nuts. So we just feel like that. Let's take advantage of that. I mean, we've added this much equity. You know, we can turn this money over and go buy another one. So usually we would want to hold between 5 and 7 years would be the plan. And if we can refinance and get, you know, our investors a lot of their money back to them, or maybe all of it, then we would do that and hold for, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years if we like the property.
Okay, got it. So, by the way, it sounds like that you're getting a lot of these kind of so-called off-market deals again through your personal relationship that you build over time. Because it sounds like, you know, you're getting these mom and pop type or business owners that, you know, you're kind of getting from, you know, first hands these type of deals instead of, you know, through brokers, which of course it's still probably happening for you. But on that note, are you planning to do something else, let's say in the long run? Because again, which is saying like it's maybe difficult to find some good deals, and again, when you underwrite them, it doesn't make sense for the investors and for yourself personally. So would you transition into something else? Let's say maybe going in the future, maybe do some redevelopments, you know, because there's a lot of kind of free office space or hotels available to do that. Or maybe transition in a long run, maybe provide some senior housing, because they're saying, you know, those baby boomers, there's 10,000 people turning, you know, seniors overnight. So is that going to be happening as well?
You know, those are all great ideas. And I've definitely thought about those things. I'm definitely not there yet. I mean, that's a whole, you know, a whole nother thing to learn and more connections. I am still, I'm sold on multifamily in the long run. I don't care what the economy does. You know, the worst thing that can happen, and in my opinion, if you buy right and you buy in a good area, let's say we have a downturn, the worst thing that can happen is you have to lower rent a little bit. Right. That's really, I mean, people still need a place to live. I mean, sure, maybe some people live together. So maybe you have a little bit higher vacancy and your rent comes down a little bit. If you buy right and you're smart and you have reserves, it doesn't mean you're going to lose the property. It means your returns are going to be down a little bit. But if we have a downturn, everybody's returns are going to be down. People in the stock market, their money's just going to go away, you know, if it all turns down. So I'm still sold on multifamily. That's what I know. That's what I'm passionate about. So I'm not looking to transition at all. We're just being very patient. So it's been almost a year since we bought our last property, since we bought that 10 unit. And it's just because we are not, you know, moving our numbers. With the returns we expect have not changed. We're not saying, oh, let's just, you know, spend more and expect less of a return for our investors. We're staying diligent and yeah, we're doing some things like you said. We actually, all the properties we've gotten so far, Martinez, have been on the market, but they've just been on the market for over a year because they were really run down, really poorly managed. So yeah, we've just gotten ones where, yeah, the mom and pop owners had done a really bad job with them. And if they had done better, they could have sold quickly and for top dollar, but they had not. So that's where we took over. And that's why, you know, now that we have professional management in there and have cleaned up the properties and now we were able to sell them quickly for top dollar. So no, we're definitely trying to make more relationships to find stuff off market. I think right now for me, kind of like I mentioned, the only way right now that I've seen to really find a good deal. Some people say you've got to make a good deal because there's no way to find a good deal right now because there's no good deals out there. And I think to make a good deal is just to find a property that is really distressed, you know, one that has high vacancy and needs a lot of work. So, you know, those owners are forced to sell for, you know, a good price for me as the buyer. Whereas if you've got a good property that's doing well, you're going to sell for top dollar and I'm probably not interested. So we're looking for properties that need a lot of work in the multifamily space.
Yeah. Okay. So part of that, again, part of your personal business process is managing, right, these type of deals when you're going to acquire them. So can you talk about your existing property manager? Because you said it's probably the one that currently managing those, multifamily deal portfolio that you have. So, and maybe you can give some advice for people who are looking to hire one about, vetting process of a property management as well.
Yeah, sure. So I love my property manager, and I don't know that they're the best in the world, but I kind of joke, I pay them. We pay them 8% of the rental income. So the income they get 8%. That's pretty standard. They wanted to start us out at 10, and I negotiated them down to 8. So usually 7 to 10% is what, and I would say it's definitely more than 7 now. I'd say 8 to 10% when you just own a few small ones. The bigger you get, the smaller that number is. To have somebody manage a 100 unit actually costs less percentage wise. And again, that's why a lot of guys say, go bigger, go bigger. The economies of scale, you can make more money that way. So that's where we're headed. But I always joke that I would pay them probably 20% for what they do. I mean, the stuff that they handle, the residents, complaints about each other, and just, all that stuff, I want nothing to do with that. So, the fact that they handle that and collecting rent, just going after people for rent and, hey, if you don't pay, we're going to have to evict you, stuff like that. That's not me. I'm not actually a good manager in that way. And I'm too soft to do that with people, but you have to do it. I mean, unless unless you want to run a charity, you have to have these guidelines in place. If someone's not going to pay to live on your property, then they're going to have to leave, And so I love having a property management company. The reason I think they're really good, I mean, one thing I would say, Martinez, is like, they're like the right size to me. So they're not a beginning property management company that only manages 50 units. They manage like 800 to 1,000 units. So, and they've been doing it for like 10, 15 years. So they know what they're doing. And the fact that they manage so many units, they have like a 15, 20 person team. Okay. So they have one person that handles the leasing process, one person that handles all the marketing of the vacant units, one person that handles the unit turns. So when somebody moves out, all right, we'll get our team in there and turn it over, get it ready to rent again. One person that handles the really big projects. So like when I come in and say, hey, I want the whole common area redone, so they've got a person that kind of handles that. And whether it's them doing it with their own contractors or finding you subcontractors to do that work, finding you some painters, they handle all that. They have one person that handles the residents, like when the residents call in, handling those calls and stuff like that. And then even the lady that runs the Lori, who runs it, I can call her too. I mean, so they're big enough to have a team built out. It's not a one man or one woman show or just a couple people trying to manage, 50 units or 100 units by themselves. They have a whole team, and everybody's specialized and focused on what they do. But yet they're small enough that I can still talk to the lady in charge, and I can talk to all those people, and I know them all well. So I just feel like that size is like the perfect size. They're only in the market that I'm in. They're not nationwide. They're not even statewide. Okay. So they know the market very well because that is their market. So, yeah, I feel like that size and they work hard. So I feel like that size is right. So that would be my suggestion, is to look for somebody that it's big. They're big enough to have a team, where people are actually managing, certain things. So they get really good at managing that part of the process, but get somebody also that's not so big that, I don't know, you're constantly talking to different people and it's like you're just one small peon in their army.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so talking about the property manager, I mean, what are your plans going further? If it's going to be the same company that you're working with right now, going to be managing your multifamily, syndication deals, or maybe you're planning to kind of create vertically integrated property management going in the future for your own deals.
So if we buy anything in this market, we'll use the same property manager. Even the bigger properties, we'll use them. And we'll have to scale. I would say we would scale. Some people say like the right number is like 1,000 units. Maybe we would think about it before then, but I think probably in our future we will vertically integrate, like you're saying, and have our own in-house property management. And again, it's not because to make money on that, or that we think we'll be so good at it. It's just that, how it is, Martinez. I mean, no one cares about your property as much as you do. they just don't have the incentive to care. So I think eventually it does make sense to have people, your own people managing your own properties. I think we're probably still, I don't know, a few years away from that. I think we've got to, scale up and get more properties. That's not something that I'm interested in. I think that'll actually be Kevin that'll drive that. But what I would see us doing is just bringing in, somebody like Lori that I've worked with, like, hey, would you want to come start a property management company for us for just our properties? It's definitely not something that I'm going to be doing. I want to be out there finding more properties, but yeah, I could see us partnering with somebody that could do that and bring that in house. But I think we're still a few years away from that.
Yeah. So coming back to, property managers paying attention to the deals, as you're saying, nobody else will pay attention as much as the owner itself, when it comes to managing these deals. Well, unless property management investing in those deals themselves also as maybe limited partners, because that's happening too. Maybe they'll pay more attention, so that could be happening.
Absolutely, they would.
Yep. Yeah. So talking about that current property management company that you have, can you talk, the process, kind of day-to-day process, or maybe, because the first was not long ago, was like 9 days ago. So how did they go about? Because now it's a little bit of an issue for some property management or some property owners and managers at the same time when it comes to rent collections. So how did these guys, been going about and making sure that these transactions, these kind of rent collections go as smooth as possible?
Yeah, they're definitely reaching out to people, and we are being more flexible. So everybody understands that, there's a lot of people going through a hard time of their business shutting down. Hopefully temporarily. Some people it's not going to be temporary. But so we're being more flexible, but there's a lot of assistance out there. So our property managers are, they're kind of experts in that area. Like, hey, if you need assistance, here's where you can find it. So helping people with those resources of here's, where you can go to help pay your rent, because we are still going to have to ask you to pay rent. So if you're not getting unemployment, which, most people, that's kind of slow. And that's, again, Martin, it's like where we can be flexible. You don't file for unemployment and get your first check in a week. It can take months sometimes. So we want to do the right thing, you want to be, do the right moral thing. So we're definitely going to be flexible and try to help people out. There are people out there, unfortunately, that are trying to take advantage of the situation. We actually have a rent moratorium or an eviction moratorium in the United States through the end of the year. It doesn't exactly mean what people think it means. You can still evict people. It's just going to be delayed to the end of the year, but that's only if they can really prove that they can't pay. So if people just decide to stop paying, they can be evicted. So some of our, I've heard, luckily it's not been the people on our property, but I've heard from Lori, my property manager, that they got 15 calls on the week that was announced, like, hey, we're not paying rent anymore. And she said, we've never had any more evictions, because they are still going to evict people. If you still have to pay unless you absolutely can't. And you can prove that. You have to go to court and prove that you can't pay. So they're helping to educate people on the benefits that are out there, and we are being flexible and giving people more time. But yeah, at the end of the day, you still have to pay rent, and collections have been pretty good. That's been kind of the neat thing, and honestly, nationwide, it seems like rent collections are good. Again, like going back to what I was telling you about the markets on the coast, except in those cities that you mentioned, New York, San Francisco, Seattle, some of these booming, like Las Vegas, they are seeing huge declines in rent and huge increase in default and late payments and stuff like that. So in those, boom and bust markets, they're the ones right now that are already seeing these huge dips. Everywhere else, it's honestly kind of business as usual with a little bit of, increased delinquency and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And for the state of California, having all these tax problems and water problems and the rest of the problems, over there, that's the last problem that they need, at this moment. And that's why people leaving the state. So,
yes.
And again, talking about your state, Ohio, is it more of a kind of tenant or landlord friendly state?
It's a pretty landlord friendly state. Yeah, I think it's very reasonable. I'm a landlord, so maybe I'm I'm biased, but it doesn't take forever to get somebody out of a unit. And what's like, we had an experience where a guy just left. He just left. So he's not going to pay rent, obviously, but he's just gone. So you actually do have to evict that person. And I just can't imagine how frustrating it would be going through the process in a state like California, where it takes months and months to evict somebody that literally left your property. They're gone. But you can't just, he left his stuff there. So you can't just take somebody else's property and clean it out and rent it. I get that. But like, if the guy left, he left. So lucky in Ohio, it still took like about a month. And we had to pay the court fees and stuff like that. But it's much quicker than some of these other states. So yeah, it's definitely more of a landlord friendly state than a lot of others.
Got it. Okay, good. So talking about the last part of your process is treating people right. So again, as you mentioned before, people who will come and invest in the deals, you're talking about, you're looking for that 8% preferred return. So can you talk about the way those deals are going to be structured? You kind of talked about 5-year holding period, and maybe you're going to apply kind of the same strategy when it comes to that on those syndication deals. But just explaining the syndication, maybe giving kind of 10,000 feet overview, how does it look like for the people who are looking to invest in those type of deals?
Yeah, sure. So, we kind of put together like an example deal recently. Like if we were we were looking at a 48 unit deal that we really liked and weren't able to get it, but we were going to buy that. It was under 2 million, but let's just say we were going to buy it for 2 million. So, you got to put 20% down on a property. So that's $400,000 that you need to put down. And then you're going to have closing costs, some other stuff. And then we were going to put at least 100,000 into the property. So we were looking to raise around $600,000 to take this property down and to really reposition it and really increase the value and get the occupancy up and everything like that. So we were looking to raise $600,000. So that we don't have a ton of investors, we were going to make the minimum investment $50,000. Okay, so if everybody invested $50,000, we're going to have 12 investors, right? That's a nice good size group there. So you invest $50,000 to $100,000. This property and most would cash flow from day one, but it may not be the best cash flow. So we are going to give an 8% preferred return. So what that means is, gosh, I'd have to do the math real quick. 8%. So we're going to raise 600,000 times 0.08. Okay, so $48,000. Okay, that's an 8% preferred return on for all of our investors. So if we make $50,000 in the first year, which is probably about realistic for this property because it wasn't doing so well, the investors get almost all that money, right? So they get $48,000 right off the top. There's only $2,000 left over, so we split $2,000 with them. So Kevin and I are not going to make much money in that first year, and that's fine. We're not doing it's not a get rich quick scheme. We're investing for the long term. So that's how that works. That's how we can kind of, certainly not guarantee them an 8% return, but we're going to do everything we can, and we're going to give them all the money, all the profit until they get that 8% return. If they were not to get the 8% return in the first year, that would carry over to the second year, where like if they got a 6% return in the first year, and maybe my math's not exactly right, but like they would need to get a 10% return in the second year to average out that they're getting an 8% return each year. So that's what we're doing there. And then obviously they're sharing in the equity. And then after 5 to 7 years, if the property, will for sure, and maybe it's even within 3 years, but when we get the property really kind of at its optimal, efficiency and profitability, then we would look at, okay, is the market right to sell this property? And to reap all the rewards of what we've done over the past few years of repositioning this, or is it good just to refinance, get a lot of our investors' money back to them, and then just hold it and just enjoy the cash flow? When you refinance, you're getting a new loan, obviously, and you could get a supplemental loan too instead of refinancing. But so your payment is going to be higher, so the cash flow will actually go down a little bit. But because you're returning capital, let's say we can return $300,000. So now every investor that invested $100,000 now only has $50,000 into the deal. So their return on their money just skyrocketed, right? So if you're getting an 8% return on 100,000, and now you're making the exact same amount, but you only have 50,000 in, now you're getting a 16% return. So that's the magic of being able to refinance or get a supplemental loan and get their money back to them. And then obviously at that point, when we refinance or sell, Kevin and I would have, maybe 40%, maybe 30% of the equity. So that's when we would really get paid as well. We would make a big lump sum. And that's because we've done all the work along with the property management company to get the property to where it is, to increase the value so that we can sell for much higher than we bought for, or so that we can refinance and pull money out. So that's where we get to really enjoy our, part of the profits is at that point.
Yeah. Okay. So if some of you who are listening or watching this episode, you got a little bit confused of Lee kind of explaining what the returns are going to be and the way the deal is going to be structured, it's all comes down to one thing. It's education. So definitely there is a platform that called Threefold Real Estate Investing. It's a brand new podcast that Lee and came up with. So it's a great resource for you to go and check it out and kind of educate yourself about when it comes to those return structures and the way multifamily syndication deals work and how you can invest alongside with those. But for you, the question, like when you came up with the podcast, so where is the main approach? Like, are you doing interviews just like this, or talking yourself? Like, What's happening right now there?
Yep, absolutely. We're doing interviews just like this. I'm interviewing other almost exclusively multifamily investors. We've had a couple that aren't, but mostly we're just interviewing multifamily investors. And the approach with the podcast, Martin, is where we're just a little bit different is there's a real focus on faith and family. I mentioned before, I'm a Christ follower. Not all my guests are, but most of them have families or are thinking about having families. And kind of the point there is, I think the reason a lot of people get into investing, real estate investing specifically, and maybe specifically multifamily investing, I think the reason a lot of people get into it is because they want to improve their life, right? Like, so they want to make money. They want their money to work for them. They want to invest and become financially independent or, retire early, something like that. Well, why do people want to do that? For the most part, it's because they want to have more time with their family, more time with their friends, more time with the hobby, maybe more time giving back, maybe more money to give back. For me and my wife and our family, that involves our church, and pursuing Christ. And so that's kind of what I end up getting into toward the end of my podcast. So we do talk all, real estate and multifamily real estate and kind of dig in like you and I have done here. But then toward the end, we like to say, okay, well, how has real estate affected your family? Like, sure, it's been financially great for you. Like it's a great way to build wealth. It's a great way for people to invest and have their money work for them. But we're doing that, right, so that we can have a better life with the ones we love, spending time with people we love. Like, so that because you can make a bunch of money going to corporate America. Like I was making really good money. I could have made better and better money, but I was losing the relationship with my family. So we get into that part at the end of it is, okay, how is real estate affecting you, your family, your faith and things like that?
Mm-hmm. Okay, because I love the fact, because I just remember when my mentor once told me that basically he said, always look from a point of, being in service, because there's a lot of people talking about, adding value. But he said, look, add value is kind of, it's too many people using this, this approach, and just always be in service. Because he said when the Jesus landed, that was his approach, is just to be in service. So can you just talk about it a little bit, why people should focus on, again, on the, giving part and just being in service during these times?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think you end up with a really empty feeling when you're just inwardly focused. I don't think you don't have to be a Christian to know that or believe that. I think other faiths would say the same thing, and people that would consider themselves, without faith would generally say the same thing. I mean, there's just so many examples, Martin. I'm sure you've heard of some, and maybe some people that have done so well in their career and done so well financially, and kind of get to a point where they just find out that they have no relationships and it's just an empty life. There's a great podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it. I think it's just called the Multifamily Investing Podcast. I forget, but his name's Rod Cleef. Oh, yeah. And he did so well, and he's been very open, and I appreciate that about him. But that, he built his dream home on the beach in Florida, basically had everything he ever dreamed of financially. He was sitting in his pool, and he said he was completely depressed. Absolutely. I mean, a guy that he had it all. And I don't think that it's not a unique story. So you get to a point, if you're completely focused on yourself, you end up in a place where you may have a bunch of money, but you have no relationships. You have no quality of life. I mean, it just, there's got to be something more to it than you. And for me, Martinez, it's because God made us that way. God had made us as relational beings, and God made us actually to want to serve others, and kind of made us to where, like, if we only serve ourselves, it's going to end up being a very empty feeling. So that's almost a way to turn around to say, like, it's actually better for you to serve others. I absolutely believe that. And again, people that aren't of faith believe that too, and have written books about it. But certainly Jesus Christ, absolutely, to your point, taught us that. It's just a more fulfilling life. I mean, when these apartments, we just have a little bit of experience, but talking to the residents and seeing how much they appreciate the way we've repositioned the properties, it is so fulfilling. It's so much more fulfilling than just seeing, money in the bank account, right? I mean, yeah, and I think, yeah, during this time, it's very fulfilling to help people get through a difficult time, to be flexible with people and allow them to stay in their their unit, their home, and not immediately kick them out as soon as they miss a payment, stuff like that. But yeah, you just, and again, that's the focus of the podcast, because you can do very well in this business, and not focus on other people, certainly without following Christ, stuff like that. You can do very well in this business. I just think in the end, you're going to be a very lonely person, and it's going to be very unfulfilling. And you're going to look back and say, what did I do all that for?
Mm-hmm. And just believing in something, because I'm sure there are people who are not following it, again, Christianity, and maybe they have a different religion or have no religion. It's just believing in something in general, even it's yourself, your spouse, your parents, something. Because somebody told me a story. If there's two people and one of them is believer, other one is non-believer, so he said, if there's this exactly the same goal that they're looking to reach, and both of them are reaching that goal, he said, the non-believer definitely will reach the goal, but the believer will reach it faster. So, and that's just the power of having a belief in something,
Yeah. Yeah.
So besides, being in service, you being in service with your company, when it comes to limited partners, people who invest in you right now in those GV deals, and, your communities that you're adding value to, and, to your, partners, to your, people that are around you, again, through the podcast as well, adding service to those people who are listening on the podcast. That's called Threefold Real Estate Investing. Besides that, what is your personal legacy that you're looking to leave behind you?
Right now our focus is definitely on our kids, as far as our legacy. So that's been really fun. They're now 5 and 7, so they're getting old enough to understand some things. So we've really involved them in giving back to our residents, and that's just kind of like we've given them a Christmas present, just a small Christmas present, and kind of a little note from us. When COVID first hit, we gave everybody a gift card with a little note from us, and we take our kids with us and have them be the ones to kind of deliver those door to door. So we want to leave that kind of legacy, and show that, that Christ's love, that service that Christ taught us, to show toward others. We want to leave that legacy with our kids. So that's been our focus right now. The older our kids get, we'll be able to get more involved, and we'd like to really branch out and get more involved with other charities in the area. My wife and I have both grown up in the church and done mission trips to different countries and stuff like that. So we want to be able to expand that. And again, that's what's drives us in part to build wealth, is so that we can afford to take those opportunities to go serve others, and then we can even have our own capital to invest into that. So go to whether it's a different country or just a really poor area in America, because we have them as well, to go to those areas and spend time and spend our own money, and again take our kids with us and show them we've been blessed. God has really blessed us through no reason of our own. We didn't do anything to earn this. As Christians, we believe we don't deserve the grace and the forgiveness that we get through Jesus Christ. We get that as a gift, and we feel that way, even though we've worked very hard. A lot of our financial reward has been just God's grace to us. So we want to show our kids we need to be good stewards of that, and pass that along to people that haven't been as blessed for whatever reason. Maybe no fault of their own. Maybe some of it they haven't worked as hard, but we're not the ones to judge that. So we want to give back. So right now we're just involving our kids, and they're definitely our legacy and our focus as they're young. As they get older, I think we'll be able to involve them and get out and do more, even more in our community and communities beyond.
Exactly. So that's great. I mean, focusing on your kids and on the family, making an impact on your kids, again, by showing your personal example, it will have an impact on them. and it will just, it will create this ripple effect. Though your kids will be able to create those ripple effects in different industries, so maybe real estate industry, and just it will go from there. So definitely
Absolutely.
that's a great legacy to build and have. So again, guys and girls, for the ones who are listening to this or watching this episode, make sure to share this episode with a friend of yours. That person who is looking to learn about real estate investing, multifamily investing. Maybe some of your friend, he's looking to invest in those type of deals. So make sure to pass this episode along to those people. Again, Lee, just want to say again, big thank you for coming over today and sharing your personal journey. I mean, it's very inspiring, and I love the fact what you guys are looking to accomplish in the near future, and the legacy that you're looking to leave. I mean, it's beautiful. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Martin. This has been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you again. So guys and girls, make sure to share this episode with your friends. And as always, I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.